When Portuguese explorers arrived in Brazil, the region was inhabited by hundreds of different types of Jiquabu tribes. Very little is known about the history of Brazil before 1500s. The current most widely accepted view of researchers is that the early tribes came into the Americas from Asia, either by land across the Bering Strait or by coastal sea roads along the Pacific of the 16th century. The first European to colonize what is now Brazil on the continent of South America was Pedro Álvares Cabral in 1500 under the sponsorship of the Kingdom of Portugal. Until 1529, Portugal had very little interest in Brazil, mainly due to the high profits gained through its commerce with India, China and the East Indies. The Treaty of Tordesillas was applied, which had divided the New World into two parts between Portugal and Spain. That's why today's Brazil is the only Portuguese-speaking country in the South America. Anyway, starting in the 16th century, sugarcane grown on plantations and became the base of Brazilian economy. That was the start of the use of slaves on large plantations to make sugar for export to Europe. During the first 150 years of the colonial period, attracted by the vast natural resources, other European powers tried to establish colonies in several parts of Brazilian territory. The Dutch seized some productive areas in the northeast Brazil, and afterwards they were expelled from this land. The French tried to, but they failed to. In time, gold and diamonds too were found, and Portugal was so happy because they needed a lot of money. Because of these discoveries, a huge amount of immigrants came in Brazil in the 18th century, and the economy became stronger and stronger. In that time, the economy base was the mining of gold and diamonds, but the coffee and sugar plantations too. In 1808, the Portuguese court, fleeing from Napoleon's invasion of Portugal, moved the government in Brazil, establishing themselves in the city of Rio de Janeiro. In 1815, the United Kingdom of Portugal, Brazil and Algarves was born. The King João VI of Portugal left Brazil to return to Portugal in 1821. His elder son Pedro stayed in Brazil. 1 year later, Pedro wanted to separate Brazil from Portugal and led the independence war, assuming himself as the emperor of Brazil. It was father against the son, and the son got his independence pretty familiar. The Empire of Brazil period was between 1832 and 1889, when the Republic of Brazil was established after a coup. The country's name became the Republic of the United States of Brazil, which in 1967 was changed to Federative Republic of Brazil. In the First World War, Brazil had a tiny role, sending troops in Europe to assist the return against the Central Powers. In 1930, the government continued industrial and agricultural growth and development of the vast interior of Brazil. Until that time, the coastal parts of Brazil were the center of the economy. During World War II, Brazil was an ally of the United States and sent its military to Europe. After the war in the 50s, the country experienced an economic boom and the capital was moved from the coastal Rio de Janeiro to more central Brasilia. This period resisted until 1964, when a military regime was